let's go ahead and do another little economic vignette here as we move into what I call the New World disorder coming up. And yes, disorder, because whereas the gears all mesh pretty smoothly for about 25 to 40 years, depending on the industry, all of a sudden we have sand in the gears, we have things thrown into the gears that are chipping teeth, and a lot of things are grinding to a halt in the world. And I thought today might be a good day to revisit the whole topic of globalization. When I was in business school, and from 1980 until I graduated in late 1981, with my MBA, I was very fascinated in the study of macroeconomics, what happens on global level. It's not that I didn't care what was going on at John and Jane's coffee shop down the street or the pizza parlor nearby. It's simply because I thought it was more fascinating. Money movements on a grand scale. Countries rise, countries fall, investments succeed, investments fail. But I remember back in 1980 that the whole concept of globalization was a brand new thing. We did not have internet at that time. We did not even have fax machines at that time. We had telephones and international communication that way, and cables, of course, undersea cables and telegrams. But there really wasn't an idea that perhaps we should be, expanding our operations worldwide beyond just shipping, putting things into a ship and sending them globally out there. Great idea. But as costs and pressures on margins increased in the United States, wages, land acquisition, land, labor, and capital started increasing, companies started to turn to the idea of greenfielding, or putting factories, production overseas, because therefore we could take advantage of, in the case of the Philippines, a reasonably educated crust of workers there that speak decent English and other things. And same thing with factories in exploring Mexico and moving production to Mexico because it was close enough, right? We had enough of a handle on Mexico that we didn't worry about the odd revolution coming down and snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Well, as it so happens, though, some of the cheapest places to engage in production happen to be in countries that are a little bit shaky. Well, for example, in China, when Deng Xiaoping decided that capitalism would be introduced into the Chinese economy, it was almost like if people thought, well, they're going to throw out the playbook of communism, which for the most part they have up until this point. So it's a kinder, gentler society. They're going to give us, if we decide to expand operations over there, or in Russia and places like that, oil and gas production, we're going to get a 50-50, maybe 49% cut of the joint venture. What a beautiful thing. We're going to be able to manufacture our products cheap. We're going to be able to provide labor for the local economy there, the local populace. Good thing. And theoretically, our profits should be pretty doggone good. And we can get tax breaks too. Win, win, win. Imagine those wonderful tax breaks. Well, we know what happened. The push for globalization accelerated over the last 40 years. And I dare say very few people ever thought that underneath this globalization, there could be risk. Things do change, right? There are leaders who, much to their later chagrin and much to the populace's displeasure, will put politics first. And therein lies a big problem for those who have investments overseas, either because of jealousy, because of espionage, industrial espionage, you start to have some problems crop up. About labor, you're not treating the labor force, you're locking labor up at night, you're working them 14 hours a day, 7 days, you understand what I'm saying. It's what I call what drove the Nike syndrome. All of a sudden everybody panicked because 12-year-old kids are putting Nike shoes together in Indonesia. Oh my. Okay, but that's precisely what was required to sort of pull that economy forward. Much like we had in the early 1900s with child labor and children on spinning looms and in cloth weaving factories all kinds of places. Believe it or not, plenty of kids worked in factories and production without a thought about it's a child or whatever, or school. It was just a sign of time. It's the way we lifted things up. Many hands make for light work, right? Now today we have a situation where we see so many companies have operations worldwide. And we know that it hollowed out much of the United States manufacturing base. Because the assumption was there that, well, it's a new world order. Everybody's going to be kind, but as I said, there are people that come along that have political aims that at least temporarily surpass those of economic reality. Now, what does that precisely mean? It means no matter what a politician or a dictator does over the short term to intervene and make new rules and regulations, we know at the end of the day, if the economics go to crap, then eventually out the window goes the dictator, and a new order is born within that country. We have a situation now where the global shocks to the system right now are phenomenal. Much of our overseas production, much of the oil is produced overseas. We now have the political overlay of sanctions on Russia, and we can see the dominoes start to fall. As companies now realize things may occasionally get destabilized in the world. Maybe we're at the end of this fascinating trend towards globalization. And maybe things are a little, okay, maybe we bite the bullet a little bit. We absorb a little more cost at home. But damn, we don't have to worry about some tin horn dictator stepping up and wreaking havoc on our investment overseas. And at worst, expropriation, which I believe will be coming in Russia. What is that? That's the state, that's the government saying, well, it's a nice factory, but it now belongs to us. Okay, sorry about that. Guess you should have been a little bit smarter about where you put the factory. So now you have a lot of disinvestment going on. Countries like Norway are rapidly moving and going to probably take losses on billions of dollars in Russia, and other companies billions of dollars too. It's just not the Russian people that are going to lose. Okay, it's also investors. So we have this scenario now where under cover of like a market that's just kind of barely holding up, it's teetering. It's tottering, it's up 300, it's down 800, it's up 7, it's gone crazy, right? Because the market cannot process, the investment markets cannot process quickly enough what's going on because there's so many moving parts on the board, right? What are the implications for oil? Well, $115 a barrel today. I had a target of 120. That looks almost like a slam dunk. When it was 80, I said 120 is a great initial target here for that. So we understand that underlies a lot, the need for energy and things. The first punch, boom. Right. Then we have the potential for conflagration and war, boom. Then we have to sit around think tanks and think to ourselves, is anybody going to push the big red button? Boom. Right. The fourth one, commodity prices are going through the roof. Boom! Is it any wonder that things are staggering right now in the world and things seem kind of punch drunk? Because events are moving so fast because we've gotten so deep and the world has gotten so deep into this concept of globalization, which seems like a great idea at the time, but it also takes for granted as a precondition and a long condition that stability will always reign wherever we put our chips. Such is not always the case. And now we're seeing this sort of mad rush to think, oh man, we better get, it's crazy. We better get stuff set up here to protect ourselves. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, globalization is a great idea until politics rears its ugly head. And ugly politics, dictatorships, proletariats, oligarchies get involved, and then all of a sudden start sweating bullets in the boardroom and the corporate headquarters that, guys, we might be looking at a write-off here, and we might not be able to get the production. And let's just throw on the other idea too. We can't even afford shipping rates anymore. How's globalization working out for you now? Okay. Forget, once in a while, politics rears its ugly head and the world pays a price. I think now going forward from 2021, 2022 forward, you are going to see the dismantling of globalization on a massive scale, okay, and reinstitution of eventually production facilities and homegrown things, but it's going to come at a cost. Because unfortunately, the whole punch-drunk, rickety structure is going to come down as a consequence of inability to perceive long-term possibilities in these type of investments in places that aren't noted for stability, especially political stability. So in other words, I think we got to go down and go far before we start to build up again. Let's hope the forces of rational thought for future generations of life on this planet continues and guides us on a path to eventually peace and settlement. But the idea of de-globalization is now born, kicked, and underway. And you will see the results of that coming up. So for all of you who have major investments in overseas mutual funds and things like that, it's time to really give a hard thought about stuff. It's time to really give a hard thought about, are we stable here? Are we potentially unstable? It's a time for real reflection. And remember this, the true enemy of good investment is uncertainty and the unknown. Well, I hope you derived something from today's little talk. I will try to feature these more and more coming up, if for no other reason to stimulate your thought and to have you hearken back to the beginnings of trends that are in place today and now reach a point where they smash head on like a train into a block wall. Trends that have to be reversed. Thanks for watching, everybody, and your thumbs up, I really appreciate it.